Well, it looks like today the Honorable Johnson Naika has decided to play the work, to do the work of the Sergeant at Arms, and it confirms that the House cooperates. Very well, we now have the quorum.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Honour members, I wish to recognize a delegation from the United States Congress seated in the Speaker's Gallery. The delegation comprises of 1, Representative Jeff Fortenberry, Congressman and co-chair, International Conservation Caucus. Representative David Ciciline, Congressman. Representative Doug Lampon, Congressman. The delegation is accompanied by a team from the International Conservation Caucus Foundation, ICCF, who include the following: Mr. David Barron, ICCF Group Chairperson. 2, Ms. Agnes Mosiani, ICCF Country Director, Kenya. Ms. Caroline Ann Wells, Program Director, Ocean Caucus Foundation. 4, Ms. Jill Barasa, ICCF Program Officer. Mrs. Celestine Maria Fortenberry, spouse, and Mrs. Jean Ann Lampon, spouse. The delegation is in the country for bilateral meetings and also meet and exchange views with the Kenya Parliamentary Conservation Caucus, chaired by the member for North Hall, the Honorable Francis Church Uganya, MP, and the Catholic MP's Spiritual Support Initiative, chaired by the member for Community, the Honorable Dr. Chris Wamalwa, MP. The delegation is welcome to observe proceedings of the National Assembly this afternoon. I thank you, no members. Honour members, before we start the main business of the House, I will be issuing the next communication, which is on the matter to do with Public Investments Committee. But we can proceed.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
Very well, there's a message. Wait. There is a message from the Senate on its consideration of the Warehouse Receipts Systems Bill, which is being transmitted, and I will be conveying it to the House later.
Number 4, petition.
The Honorable Patrick Ntwiga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to lead petition number 23 of 2019, access to affordable and reliable health insurance cover for teachers under the Teacher Service Commission. I, the undersigned, on behalf of representatives of KUPPET in the Tharaka-Nithi County, draw the attention of the House to the following. 1, that the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Teachers, KUPPET, is a registered union that represents all post-primary teachers in Kenya with a current membership of 70,000 teachers. 2, that in January 2015, the Teachers Service Commission, TSC, entered into an agreement with the Minet Group Limited to underwrite health insurance for teachers employed under the Teachers Service Commission. 3, that the Commission was obliged to satisfy the terms of the contract by taking away medical allowance from all teachers. 4, that the entire process was shrouded in secrecy without adequate consultation with the majority of teachers who are in the main stakeholders as well as the beneficiaries. 5, that due to conflict of interest amongst the parties and procurement entity, TSC terminated the tender awarded to Minet Group Limited, who petitioned the Public Procurement and Administrative Review Board. 6, that the review board ruled in favor of the applicant, and subsequently the Minet was awarded the tender. 7, that most credible health facilities have withdrawn from Minet Group of health providers, forcing insurance to move to private clinics that lack capacity to offer proper medical attention. Number 8, that the teachers lack confidence in such facilities, and therefore majority of teachers end up paying for medical services in other better equipped facilities, not among health providers contracted by Minet insurance brokers. Number 9, that the outpatient services as per the contract are supposed to be limitless. However, some of the health facilities offering outpatient services require that patients pay for services rendered. Number 10, that efforts have been made to have TSC address the above issue to no avail. And 11, that the issues in respect of which this petition is made are not pending before any court, constitution, or legal body. Therefore, your humble petitioners plea that the National Assembly, through the Departmental Committee on Education and Research, 1, investigate whether Minet Group Limited, pool of health services providers, have the capacity to handle or cover over 70,000 families. Number 2, recommend procurement of medical cover for teachers with other reputable insurance providers, amongst them the National Health Insurance Fund, NHIF. Number 3, cause an audit of the teachers' medical fund that ensure that the funds which might have been diverted from the medical fund by the underwriter be recovered. And 4, make any other order or direction that it deems fit in the circumstance of the matter. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Before I allow comments, let me also allow the Honorable Mashako to also present his petition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to reintroduce this petition that was presented at the floor of the House last session, but has yet lapsed. Petition number 26 of 2019, failure to pay hardship allowance to teachers in Taita Taveta County. I, the undersigned, on behalf of the teachers of Taita Taveta County, draw the attention of this House to the following. 1, that Article 41(2)(a) of the Constitution stipulates that every worker has a right to fair remuneration. 2, that further, the public service policy provides that public servants working in hardship areas are entitled to hardship allowances. 3, that legal notice number 534 of 1997, read together with Section 7 of the Teachers Service Commission Act, Cap 212, provides that teachers in hardship areas shall be paid hardship allowances at the rate of 30% of their basic salary. 4, that most areas in Taita Taveta County, including Kishushe, Mwanda, Rumingu, among others, have not been gazetted as hardship areas, despite the state of the road network, harsh climatic conditions, water scarcity, human-wildlife conflicts, lack of mobile telephone network coverage, and social amenities, among other prevalent problems. That the Ministry of Education has continued to discriminate the teachers of Taita Taveta County and some parts, particularly Wundanyi sub-county and some parts of Mwatate sub-county, and including Taita Taveta sub-county as well. That there has been growing discontent among teachers from various schools because of the disparities in payment of hardship allowances. That teachers have been reluctant to take up teaching positions in the areas that are not entitled to hardship allowances, hence adversely affecting performance and general development across the aforementioned sub-counties. Efforts to resolve this matter with Teacher Service Commission and Salaries and Remuneration Commission have been futile. none of the issues raised in these petitions are pending in any court of law, constitutional body, or any legal body. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, your humble petitioners pray that the National Assembly, through the Departmental Committee on Education and Research, investigates the circumstances under which there are disparities in payment of hardship allowances to teachers in Taita Taveta County. 2, causes the Salaries and Remuneration Commission to harmonize payments of hardship allowances for teachers in the county. 3, causes the Cabinet Secretary for Education to gazette Ronge Zone, Taita, and Taveta Sub-County as hardship areas. 4, recommends that the Teachers Service Commission effects payments of hardship allowances for teachers in the said sub-counties who were entitled to hardship allowances but were never paid. And lastly, make any other direction it deems fit in the circumstances, and your petitioners will ever pray. Thank you.
I'll allow a few comments on both petitions. Honorable Miremba.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I want to thank the members who have raised the petitions. One, the petition on hardship allowance. I will be very precise, Honorable Speaker, that that is one of the petitions that keep on coming in Parliament and was even coming in Parliament before I came to Parliament. But somewhat, when it comes here, there's no particular committee or department of government that wants to deal with it directly. At one time, like the petition is being put to the Education Committee. But later on, when you talk to Teacher Service Commission, they tell you that this matter can only be dealt with by the Ministry of Labor and other ministries. I currently sit on the Ministry of Labor. And when we called the PS over the same, he said that there's need to create a consortium of officials from several ministries, including the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Labor, and I think other departments of government. So as you direct this particular petition, I would want to request you that whichever committee this issue will be going to, let it be all-inclusive so that all the players who are supposed to be concerned with this matter come together and finally deal with the issue of hardship allowance. So I don't want to belabor on who is not getting and who is not getting. Finally, on the issue of insurance, not only the teachers of Kupet, but the teachers of Kenya require a good medical cover. And it was in the earnest search of the same that the teachers wish to have a good medical cover. Unfortunately or fortunately, the Teacher Service Commission is the one that negotiates for who the teachers will enter into in terms of medical cover. So again, I would want to ask the committee relevant to that, and I think maybe you'll be directing it to the Committee of Education, that it helps the teachers of Kenya, and Parliament helps the teachers of Kenya, get a good medical cover that can actually assist the teachers holistically together with their families so that they are also covered correctly. And therefore, I want to thank the two honorable members. Thank you.
Well, that appeared to have been like a serious response or suggestion, not a comment. Member from where?
Thank you.
Before you make your comments, allow me, honorable members, to recognize the presence in the public gallery of students and pupils from the following institution. From Kenyatta University in Kasarani constituency in Nairobi County, Mugeko Secondary School, Larry constituency, Kiambu County, St. Anthony Secondary School, Narok East constituency, Narok County, and Fountain Primary School, Lemuru constituency, Kiambu County. You are welcome to observe proceedings of the House this afternoon. Honorable Kabinga with that.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for allowing me to comment on this, on especially the last second petition on hardship allowances, Honorable Speaker. And I have in the past contributed towards the same. The criteria used in identifying hardship areas, Honorable Speaker, needs to be reviewed because sometimes we do not understand how some areas are left out as hardship areas. there is a tendency in looking at a constituency or a county and thinking that all areas in that constituency or that county are the same. In my constituency, Honorable Speaker, we have parts that may not qualify as hardship areas, but we also have parts that are over-qualified to be hardship areas. I have a whole location by name South Gariama with about eight primary and 1 secondary school. And Honorable Speaker, if you go to this area, you even wonder how teachers make it in that particular area. There is no water, roads are in poor conditions, no houses for them. They would have to go far to find accommodation. Yet, these teachers who are struggling are not classified, or rather they are not compensated alongside their colleagues who are in the neighboring constituencies. And when you look at constituencies that are given hardship allowance, Honorable Speaker, you can clearly notice a difference. Schools that are in my constituency can be clearly seen to be underperforming compared to the schools that are in my neighboring constituency that is benefiting from the hardship allowance. Most teachers prefer to be...
Comments, please. You know,
Thanks.
This is not a question for debate.
Honorable Speaker, I'm in line with my colleague who also commented that he doesn't understand why some areas in Taita are not considered as hardship areas. And I am aligning myself with that particular comment that I also fall into the same, and this issue of hardship areas needs to be reviewed, Honorable Speaker.
Honourable members, we move to some other business. The petitions are referred to the relevant committees as prayed by the members. Members making your way through. Members making your way, can you please do so quickly?
Messages.
Honorable Madime, this is not the occasion to debate about hardship. It's some other business. Honourable members, as I indicated, there was a message from the Senate which I needed to convey to the House, pursuant to Standing Order number 41. And I wish to report to the House that I've received a message from the Senate regarding its decision on the Warehouse Receipt System Bill, Senate Bill number 10 of 2017. Honourable members, you'll recall that the Warehouse Receipt System Bill, Senate Bill number 10 of 2017, was passed by the National Assembly on Tuesday, November 27, 2018, with amendments. Honourable members, the message reads in part, and I quote, "The Senate on Thursday, 14 March 2019, considered and rejected the National Assembly amendments to clauses 2, 3, 4, 9, 10, 11, 16, 17, 21, 23, 24, 25, 26, 30, 31, 32, 39, 41, 43, 44, 45, 48, 50, and the schedule to the bill, the effect of which the same bill is referred to a mediation committee." Close the quotes. Honourable members, as you may also recall, the National Assembly rejected the Senate amendment to the Kenya Roads Bill, National Assembly Bill number 47 of 2017, on Thursday, March 14, 2019. Therefore, the two bills stand referred to two separate mediation committees in accordance with Article 112 of the Constitution. Consequently, the leadership of the majority and the minority parties in the House are hereby directed to expeditiously nominate 3 and 2 members respectively for appointment to each of the two mediation committees to be established for consideration of the bills. Once constituted, the committees will be expected to speedily embark on the process of developing mediated versions of the said bills in accordance with Article 113 of the Constitution. I thank you.
Order number 5, papers.
Majority Whip.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House. Today, Thursday, March 21st, 2019. One, reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the year ending 30th June 2018 and the certificates therein. A, Commission for Administrative Justice. B, University of Kabianga. C, Ewasonyiro North River Development Authority. And D, National Sports Fund. 2, report of the Auditor General on the financial statements in respect of Mwatate constituency. 3, a revenue statement of business registration service for the 14th month ended 30th June 2018. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well.
Notices of motion.
Majority Whip.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion. That pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 28-4, this House resolves to alter its calendar for the third session of the Assembly 2019 as adopted on February 13th, 2019 as follows. 1, by proceeding for the short recess on Friday, April 5th, 2019, and resuming its regular sittings on Tuesday, April 23rd, 2019, and 2, by commencing the long recess on Friday, May 10th, 2019, instead of Friday, May 3rd, 2019. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Honour members, in keeping with the provisions of Standing Order number 43, before we go to questions, because Standing Order 43 requires statements to be made before 3 p.m. I will allow the statement by a member of the Defense and Foreign Relations Committee, Honorable Beatrice Gather.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I like to make a statement pursuant to Standing Order number 43 and update the House on the deployment and the discontinuation of the Kenyan Defense Forces in support of the Kenya Wildlife Service in response to fire outbreak in Mount Kenya National Park. Honorable Speaker, Article 241, 3B of the Constitution provides that Kenyan Defense Forces shall assist and cooperate with authorities in situations of emergency and disaster, and report to the National Assembly whenever deployed in such circumstances. Further, Section 3.1, 1A, 31, 2, 33, 1, 34, 2, and 3 of the Kenya Defense Forces Act of 2012, revised 2018, obligates the Cabinet Secretary of Defense to report to this House when Kenya Defense Forces is deployed to contain a disaster within the country. Honorable Speaker, in keeping with this provision, the Cabinet Secretary for Defense submitted a report to this House, which was subsequently tabled in the House and referred on to the Departmental Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations. During the sitting held on Tuesday, 19th March 2019, the committee considered the content of the report and noted the following. that, 1, on 1st of March 2019, the Kenyan Defense Forces were deployed in support of the Kenya Wildlife Service to contain fire outbreak in Mount Kenya National Park, which constituted an environmental emergency. 2, the Kenyan Defense Forces were deployed at Chogoria and Nyeri within Mount Kenya National Park. 3, the personnel deployed were 4 officers and 391 service members. 4, the following underlisted equipments were deployed. Number 1, 6 troop carrying vehicles. Number 2, 2 FVZ Isuzu. 3, 1 FF Land Rover. 4, 1 Land Cruiser. Number 5, the deployment discontinued on 3rd of March 2019 when the fires were contained. 6, lastly, an approximately Kenya shillings 5 million were incurred for equipment and rations and fuel. Honorable Speaker, as I conclude, I would like to thank the Kenyan Defense Forces for the role they played in the protection of the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of the Republic. Moreover, I wish to thank all the officers from the Defense Forces who were deployed to contain the fire outbreak in Mount Kenya National Park. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Honourable members, that is just in keeping with the requirements of the law. Now we go to questions. The first question is by the member for Kieni.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to ask a very important question to the Minister for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, and Urban Development. 1, is the Cabinet Secretary aware that one Ephraim Wangare Dumia of ID number 34076183, a third-year student at Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, was on 7th March 2019 denied travel to India for specialized medical treatment by an Air Arabia aircraft after having checked in at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. 2, Mr. Speaker, is the Cabinet Secretary further aware that MS Dumia was again denied to travel on 17th March 2019 and was forcibly ejected from an Etihad Airways aircraft at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport? And 3, has the ministry taken any action to ensure that MS Dumia is facilitated and allowed to travel to India to seek medical treatment, and that she is not discriminated by any airline on account of her medical condition? Mr. Speaker, I'm sitting next to the chair of that committee, and I'm beseeching and pleading with him to give this matter a priority. Mr. Speaker, we, of course, with your indulgence, because this is a very urgent matter. The lady is still in the country. She needs urgent attention, but the 2 airlines have forcibly ejected her from their aircraft, having even taken her money for travel. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I thought you were asking a question. You are now giving information. Let's go to the Committee on Transport and Public Works, Housing. Next question by the member for Bori, Mugambi Muruidania.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is directed to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government. Is the Cabinet Secretary aware that on 17th July 2018, one Paul Kalani Mungania of identification number 2427660 from Bori went missing, and the matter reported at Soboiga Police Station on 20th July 2018, and a statement recorded at Isiolo Directorate of Criminal Investigations offices on 26th July 2018. Is the Cabinet Secretary further aware that on 19 September 2018, his body was found at Kalama Conservancy near Asher's Post in Samburu County and taken to Isiro District mortuary, but the family was not informed until 6 October 2018, after which a postmortem was carried out on 5th November 2018. 3, could the Cabinet Secretary provide the status of investigations into this disappearance and the cause of death? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Referred to the Committee on Administration and National Security. Member for Imenti, North Imenti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm asking the question number 138, 2019, to the Cabinet Secretary for Transport Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development. Number 1, could the Cabinet Secretary explain the qualifications and the capability of Messrs. Intex Construction Company to undertake the construction of Mate Road in North Imenti constituency, which has been ongoing for the last 7 years? Number 2, what steps has the ministry undertaken to ensure that the said road is completed on time? And 3, Mr. Speaker, could the ministry consider terminating and blacklisting the company on the account of not meeting the contractual obligations? Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I see the chairman has taken that note. Thank you.
Referred to the Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing. Next question by the member for Kisauni. Sorry, Honour members, the member for Kisauni has written to request a question be taken out of the order list. It's not in the order paper. He's not available to be present. And so is the next question. The member for Central Imenti has also requested that his question be deferred. Those two are accordingly deferred at the request of the members. The next question is by the member for Endebess, Honorable Dr. Pukose.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to ask question number 134 of 2019 to the Cabinet Secretary for Tourism and Wildlife. 1, is the Cabinet Secretary aware that sections of Mount Elko National Park, specifically at Kokwa, Kipsibo, and Jepkirot areas, are not fenced, leading to wildlife invading farms, thus destroying crops and also posing danger? 2, could the Cabinet Secretary give an undertaking for the compensation of victims for the injuries caused and the losses to crops caused by wildlife in Kokwa, Kipsibo, and Jepkirot areas? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Referred to the Committee on Environment and Natural Resources. Last question, the member for Baringo Central, Honorable Joshua Kandie.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to ask question number 135, 2019. Is the Cabinet Secretary aware that the youth and women who offered services under the Presidential Youth Empowerment Program of the National Youth Service in Baringo Central constituency in 2017 are yet to be paid their allowance to date? 2, when will the said persons be paid their dues? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Referred to the Committee on Labor and Social Welfare. Chairperson, Health. Chairperson, Health Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You are sitting in an unusual corner today. There must be some conspiracy of sorts.
Honorable Speaker, I was consulting with the two honorable members here, Honorable Soipan and Honorable Mukame. That's why I'm seated here.
Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 44 to give a statement to this Honorable House on a matter that has caught attention of the country on the matter of Kenyan doctors being trained in Cuba. Allow me first to pass my sincere condolences, and the committee also deepest condolences to the family, friends, and the county of Mombasa of the loss of Dr. Hamisi Ali Juma, who was part of the contingent in Cuba. My condolences go further to Honorable Mishimboko, who is a member of this House, and who the deceased was a brother. Honorable Speaker, sir, the committee was seized of allegations of mistreatment of the 50 Kenyan doctors taken to Cuba under bilateral agreement for postgraduate studies in family medicine. And Honorable Speaker, we also received information that we lost one of the doctors in circumstances that remain unclear till today. The committee, Honorable Speaker, and this House appropriated an amount of 1 billion for the overall Cuba bilateral program with a cost of 338.9 million Kenya shillings, specifically for the Kenyan doctors to be trained in Cuba. This program was part of the wider scheme towards attainment on one of the government Big Four agenda, the universal health coverage. Honorable Speaker, when the matter came to the light, the committee immediately wrote to the Ministry of Health, inviting them for a meeting that we held today, 21st March 2019, to establish all facts around the matter. And I can confirm that we met with the ministry and the principal secretary this morning. And I would like to just inform the House on the following. One, that the government of Kenya entered into a bilateral agreement with the government of Cuba to tap into advancement of health standards in Cuba towards attainment of universal health coverage in Kenya. The ministry this morning tabled this agreement before the committee. Part of this agreement was component of training 50 Kenyan doctors in Cuba in postgraduate studies in family medicine. This was for a period of 2-year, 4-month course. And the ministry wrote to the Council of Governors requesting them to nominate 47 doctors, each from one county, that met the criteria that was well stipulated. And the names of these doctors, therefore, were recommended, came from the county governments, and they were indeed employees of the counties. Also, the doctors were taken through a thorough orientation course of at the Kenya School of Government before departure, and this was done voluntarily. It is key to note that nomination was subject to acceptance by these doctors, personal acceptance to go to Cuba. The agreement entailed payment of usual salary and allowances in the Kenyan account as per their prevailing terms, which we understand it's a monthly payment between 84,000 to around 130,000 per month, depending on the job group of these said doctors. There was also an agreement of a stipend of approximately 36,000 Kenya shillings, and this is according to the Ministry of Public Works, the agreement on the students who go on a full scholarship on government. This stipend was exclusive of meals and accommodation, which was to be provided by the Cuban government. Honorable Speaker, we were also informed that they have also received one-off payment of 75,000, an allowance to cater for their research, and an allowance of 50,000 to cater for their book allowance, which is also a one-off. These allowances have been paid as per the ministry up to the end of March 2019. Honorable Speaker, the ministry have said that they further revised the agreement to increase to 28% to exclude meals and accommodations due to several issues that came up from the doctors. After the 6 months, they were supposed to be trained on the language, the local language, the Spanish. Honorable Speaker, the students liaised with the ministry and they opted to opt for different accommodation and also to provide themselves for meals. And so the allowance, Mr. Speaker, the stipend was increased from January to Kenya shillings 50,000 per month. This was requested by the doctors. And Honorable Speaker, the Attorney General has a letter on the same communication. Though they are earning, the Attorney General has not given a go-ahead. It is also important to note, Honorable Speakers, that the doctors are also earning allowances as per their terms of engagement, which culminate to around 180,000 Kenya shillings, but the real amount per doctor will be furnished by Thursday by the Ministry of Health. They were also provided with one-way ticket to Cuba, a return ticket after 1 year and a final one-way ticket. They have been in Cuba for 6 months, and the ministry also informed us that only one doctor who was not feeling well requested the ministry to come back, and upon consultation with the personal doctor and the parents, they agreed that the said student would not go back to Cuba. So currently we do not have 50, we had 49 now -1, so we have 48 Cuban doctors. The late Dr. Hamisi was found dead on 17th March 2019 inside his hostel in the morning at around 9 a.m. There were indications that he committed suicide, but the authorities in Cuba have asked the government to give them time to conduct investigation to rule out on homicide possibilities. An official of the embassy, both in the Kenyan, has already accompanied the body en route to Kenya and expected to arrive on 22nd March via the KLM flight, and the family are in constant communication with the ministry. Dr. Hamisi, as per the ministry, had not expressed any frustrations to the authorities, and the embassy or his colleagues prior to his untimely demise. And the investigations will show whether the family had also communicated any information to the ministry. The doctors in Cuba were informed they have access to embassy, where there's one officer, Mr. Monari, who is the contact person, and we also have a Mr. Bashir at the ministry acting as the link to the ministry, and we were also informed that the doctors are also, they have internet, so if they have any urgent information they would like to relay to the ministry, they can communicate directly to the ministry. The doctors there are studying out of their own will and have not expressed any frustration officially. And the ministry also indicated that anyone who would request to return on medical reasons or any other reason, they will be free to do so. Anyone else who desires to abandon studies will also not be stopped. The current living conditions at Cuba, the doctors were currently living in a hostel where they were being provided with meals, and initially there were 3 in a room, and it was revised, given special treatment to the Kenyan students to be 2 in a room, and now that they are proceeding to go to specific facilities where they'll be trained, there have been a revision. Instead of receiving the monthly of 50,000 allowance, there have been a request that they will be given a full allowance of $1,440 so that they can be able to seek for their own accommodation and also seek for their meals without this being provided by the Cuban authority. Honorable Speaker, the ministry has since dispatched the Chief Administrative Secretary and other senior ministry officials that also include a psychiatrist to go and establish the facts and also meet with the team of the 48 doctors who have been left at Cuba. And they'll also be furnishing the committee with any further information. The committee will therefore await this team's report and will inform the House accordingly. And as a way forward, Honorable Speaker, we have communicated to the ministry that the Attorney General immediately advises the ministry and give it a go-ahead on the addendum, on the agreement, review the allowances upwards as requested by the doctors and agreed with the ministry, that the ministry will, on Thursday, 28 March, furnish the committee with the full breakdown of all payments submitted to each doctor up to date. And they will also present an autopsy report and preliminary report of its team that has gone to Cuba. And Honorable Speaker, immediately we would request, if it were possible, that members of the Health Committee can be given an opportunity, if possible, to go to Cuba and visit this team and establish the facts on the ground from these students on their living conditions, as well, and see the experience on the training, because this house committed money, and we would like to see whether this money is worthwhile. And finally, the committee within 2 weeks furnish the House with comprehensive report. I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Whip, statement on behalf of the House Business Committee. Sorry, Majority Whip, before you give your statement, allow me also to recognize the presence in the Speakers Gallery of students from Tangaza University College, Langata constituency in Nairobi County. They are welcome to observe the proceedings in the House. Proceed, Majority Whip.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 44-2A, I rise to give statement on the business appearing before the House for the week beginning Tuesday, March 26, 2019, on behalf of the House Business Committee. Honorable Speaker, with your permission, I want to seek the attention of members and patience because the statement is a bit lengthy and detailed. Honorable Speaker, on Tuesday next week, the House will consider a motion on alteration of the 2019 calendar of the Assembly regular sessions pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 28-4 that I've just given notice to. The House will also consider motions on Senate amendments to the following two National Assembly bills. One, the Fiscal Planning Bill, National Assembly Bill number 34 of 2017, and two, the Land Value Index Laws Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 3 of 2018. Should the House conclude debate on these motions, we shall proceed to committee of the whole House on the two bills, together with the Sports Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 25 of 2018. Honorable Speaker, thereafter, we will also consider various committee reports throughout the week, including one, the report of the Public Accounts Committee on the examination of the financial statements of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Two, the report of the Committee on Member Services and Facilities on improvement of member services and facilities. Three, the report of the Regional Integration Committee on an inspection visit to the Namanga one-stop border post in Kajiado County. And four, the Public Investments Committee progress report on the inquiry into the proposed takeover of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport by Kenya Airways. Honorable Speaker, should we conclude the business, we will consider the following bills at second reading. One, the County Statistics Bill, Senate Bill number 9 of 2018, and two, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 12 of 2018. I encourage the chairperson of the relevant committee to expedite the tabling of the reports on these bills, if not already done. Members should acquaint themselves with the contents of these bills to enable them have an informed debate. Honorable Speaker, in accordance with the provisions of Standing Order number 42A, 5, and 6, I wish to convey that the following cabinet secretaries are scheduled to appear before departmental committees next week as follows. One, Cabinet Secretary for Education will appear before the Committee on Education and Research on Thursday, 28th March 2019, to answer questions number 002 of 2019 from Honorable Florence Mutua, MP. Question number 009 of 2019 from Honorable Emmanuel Wangwe, MP. Question number 030 of 2019 from Honorable Robert Mbui, MP. Question number 073 of 2019 from Honorable John Mnene Wambugu, MP. Question number 074 of 2019 from Honorable Irene Kasulu, MP. Question number 078 of 2019 from Honorable Nelson Koech, MP. And question number 094 of 2019 from Honorable Geoffrey Makoha Odanga, MP. 2, the Cabinet Secretary for Environment and Forestry will appear before the Committee on Environment and Natural Resources on Tuesday, 26 March 2019 to answer question number 103 of 2019 from Honorable Kipsengeret Koros, MP. And that's the only question. Cabinet Secretary number 3 who will be coming will be Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government, will appear before the Committee on Administration and National Security on Tuesday, 26 March 2019 to answer question number 049 of 2019 from Honorable Captain Rueda Obo, MP. Question number 056 of 2019 from Honorable Yusuf Hassan, MP. Question number 069 of 2019 from Honorable Joshua J. Biegon Kandie, MP. Question number 070 of 2019 from Honorable Joseph Tonui, MP. And question number 092 of 2019 from Honorable Charles Jagua Kanyi, MP. And the last Cabinet Secretary, is Cabinet Secretary number 4, is the Cabinet Secretary for Information, Communication, and Technology. Will appear before the Committee on Information, Communication, and Innovation on Thursday, 28th March 2019 to answer questions number 102 of 2019 from Honorable Moses Kuria, MP. Finally, Honorable Speaker, the House Business Committee will commence on Tuesday, 26 March 2019 at the rise of the House to conduct the business for the coming week. Honorable Speaker, I now wish to lay this statement on the table of the House. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honourable members, for those of you who may be upstanding, as I did promise, there is a long communication. So if you are standing, you may stand for a very long time. Honourable members, you will recall that on Thursday, 7th of March 2019, the leader of the majority party rose on a point of order, citing standing orders 83, 206, and 216, and sought the guidance of the Speaker on alleged conflict of mandates between the Public Investments Committee and those of the departmental committee, on the departmental committees. He also sought guidance on the role of the Auditor General insofar as special audits are concerned and the place of the progress report of the Public Investments Committee or the inquiry into the proposed takeover of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, JKIA, by the Kenya Airways, KQ, which was laid on the table of the House by the chairperson on Wednesday, February 27, 2019. In particular, the leader of the majority party invited the Speaker to pronounce himself on two key issues. A, whether it would be procedurally in order for a committee of the House to order stay of progress or indeed to recommend stay of progress on an ongoing government-initiated policy or project which is at infancy stage, citing ongoing inquiry by the House, and B, whether the Auditor General could carry out an ex ante or anticipatory investigations into a matter to establish adherence to the law and government policy. Honourable members, in his submissions, the leader of the majority party observed that the matter of the ongoing arrangements between the Kenya Airways and the Kenya Airports Authority is a matter of government policy that does not fall within the remit of the Public Investments Committee and by extension, the Auditor General. He further contended that the Constitution gives the functions of the Auditor General as, amongst other things, the examination of the accounts of the national and county governments, the accounts of all funds and authorities, the accounts of all courts, and the accounts of the National Assembly and the Senate. The leader of the majority party, and indeed a section of other members who spoke, pointed out that the nature of the work of the Auditor General is to a great extent post-mortem, that is limited to expenditure already incurred, and that the Auditor General should not audit a government policy, particularly at conceptualization stage. Honourable members, you will indeed recall that these very weighty procedural issues raised by the leader of the majority party elicited reactions from the floor with very valuable input from the chairperson of the Public Investments Committee, the Honourable Abdulswamad Sharif Nasir, the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing, the Honourable David Posing, the Majority Whip, the Honourable Benjamin Washiali, the Minority Party Whip, the Honourable Junaid Mohammed, amongst others, who advanced varying positions on this matter. The Minority Party Whip expressed concern that formulation and implementation of public policy is a function of the executive arm of government, and the House has no role, nor does it participate in the formulation and implementation of government policy. In his view, the involvement of the House at this stage would amount to preemption, interference, and abuse of the doctrine of separation of powers. A section of the House supported the need for the House and its committees to get to the bottom of the matter, irrespective of the stage at which the policy is. Honourable members, may I also at this point inform the House that the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing and the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning had also separately written to the Speaker on February 20th, 2019 and February 21st, 2019, respectively, claiming exclusive jurisdiction of their respective committees to examine the same matter. In this regard, my office did respond to the letter from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing, outlining broadly the issues in question, which I will similarly address shortly. Honourable members, having reviewed the content and substance of the submissions by the leader of the majority party and the procedural arguments by other members who spoke to the point of order on the 7th of March 2019, I have identified the following as the primary issues to address myself to in providing guidance to the House. 1. What is the nature of and at what stage is the arrangement between Kenya Airports Authority and Kenya Airways regarding the management of the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, and what is the applicable legal framework to the proposed management of the airport by Kenya Airways? 2. Whether the proposed commercial arrangement between Kenya Airports Authority and Kenya Airways regarding the management of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport is a matter falling under the mandate of the Public Investments Committee or the relevant departmental committee. 3. Whether the Auditor General can audit the merits or demerits of a government policy. 4. The procedure for requesting a special audit of a government project. And 5. Whether the committee could submit a progress report to the House, and if so, what the House is expected to do with such progress report. Finally, in view of the motion for adoption of the progress report of the Public Investments Committee or the inquiry into the proposed takeover of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport by Kenya Airways, laid on the table of the House on February 27, 2019, whether it would be procedurally in order for a motion on an interim report to be moved in the House and for the House to proceed to debate it. Honorable members, the first issue that calls for my determination is the question of what is the nature of and at what stage is the arrangement between Kenya Airports Authority and Kenya Airways regarding the management of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, and what is the applicable legal framework to the proposed management of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport by Kenya Airways. Honourable members, I will resume my seat to allow those members to make their way in. Please do it quickly. None of you is coming in. But you are just standing there, honourable members. Why don't you make your way in? Just make your way in. Stop shaking hands. You see, I almost assumed that you are sitting. Honourable members, and stating the first issue. And to address this question, it is important to first determine whether the House is properly seized of the said policy or issues. Obviously, the actual policy itself is not before the House or even before the committees. Indeed, it is clear that the House is seized of the matter only insofar as the parallel inquiries by the Public Investments Committee and the Departmental Committee on Transport and Public Works and Housing are concerned. You will note that the two committees, separately and rightly, and the authority vested in them by the law and the standing orders, instituted inquiries on their own motions, which inquiries I will be addressing later in this communication. Honourable members, if I'm called upon to answer the question of what is the nature of the commercial arrangement between the Kenya Airports Authority and Kenya Airways, I may not be able to respond appropriately. And the reason is I'm not privy to contents of the commercial arrangement between the two entities. However, based on information presented in my chambers by the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing, and the chairperson of the Public Investments Committee, and having read the special audit report of the Auditor General on the matter, which I will be speaking to at a later stage in this communication, I'm guided that the commercial arrangement between the Kenya Airports Authority and the Kenya Airways is a proposed privately initiated investment proposal, in brackets PIIP, within the ambit of the Public-Private Partnership Act of 2013. Honourable members, a clear reading of Section 2 of the Public-Private Partnership Act 2013 defines, and I quote, privately initiated investment proposal as a proposal that is originated by a private party without the involvement of a contracting authority and may include information that enables a complete evaluation of the proposal as it were a bid. Close the quote. Those members, I assume that those members now desire to come in. Please make your way in quickly. that member who is making his way, why don't you, if you want to come in, you don't have, you look mesmerized by yourself or by the chamber. Honourable members, the definition in itself demonstrates the inappropriateness of the application of the term takeover as used by the two committees. Honourable members, it's becoming very difficult. I was saying that the definition in itself demonstrates the inappropriateness of the application of the term takeover as used by the two committees, and indeed by a section of the members who spoke in the House on the matter. Consequently, committees, and indeed this House, should restrict themselves to terms used in the evidence adduced so far as the expressions used in the relevant laws. This is in keeping with our standing order number 91 on the responsibility for statement of facts, which behoves all members to speak with accuracy based on facts. Honourable members, permit me at this point to refresh your memory on the policy-making process and the nexus between the executive and the legislature in this process. By practice, a policy of this magnitude and importance, like many others before it or after, would have to obtain cabinet consideration. The relevant cabinet secretary would then undertake other preliminary processes with the relevant bodies, and at the appropriate stage, submit to the House a sessional paper. It then follows that the people's elected representatives would at that point exercise their oversight function by giving their views in considering the particular sessional paper. In noting the paper, the House may make reservations, comments, or acquiesce to it unconditionally. As regards the legal framework that underlies the proposed management of JKIA operations by the Kenya Airways, the question that now begs is, and I quote, is the proposed commercial arrangement an arrangement under the Public-Private Partnership Act number 15 of 2013 or the Privatization Act number 2 of 2005, close quote. Honourable members, if the proposed commercial arrangement is to be governed by the Public-Private Partnership Act number 15 of 2013, the Act provides for the procedure for entering into a public-private partnership agreement. It contemplates for an elaborate process, including preparation of the privately initiated investment proposal, consideration by the target public entity, submission of the initiative to the Public-Private Partnership Unit established in the National Treasury, and approval for the parties to enter into negotiations. The law also contemplates that the said unit shall submit a project report, a financial risk assessment report, and its recommendations to the Public-Private Partnership Committee for consideration. Section 54, subsection 3 of the Act provides that the Cabinet Secretary for Finance and the Cabinet Secretary in the State Department responsible for the implementation of the project shall prepare a joint Cabinet memorandum based on the recommendations of the Public-Private Partnership Committee and submit the memorandum to the Cabinet for approval before any execution. Honourable members, Section 55 of the same Act provides for the only instance in which parliamentary approval may be sought in respect of public-private partnerships, and that is where the partnership is for the exploitation of natural resources under Article 71 of the Constitution, and this approval would be made through a ratification process. Parliament, in its wisdom, during the legislative process leading up to the enactment of the Private-Public Partnership Act, number 15 of 2013, removed itself from the requirement of parliamentary approval of public-private partnerships. Honourable members, irrespective of the absence of the requirement of parliamentary approval in the Act, as your Speaker, I must ask myself, Is it possible for the Kenya Airways privately initiated investment proposal to be complete without Parliament's knowledge? In my view, the realistic implementation of the proposal, even when approved by the Cabinet, would require various legislative interventions, including amendments to various statutes. Ultimately, there may be need to amend different statutes, including the Kenya Airports Authority Act number 3 of 1991, the Labor Relations Act number 14 of 2007, the Air Passenger Service Charge Act, Cap 475, and possibly taxation-related laws, amongst others. As you are aware, an amendment to any of these statutes is a matter which squarely falls within the legislative mandate of Parliament. Honourable members, it is important to note that Article 95(2) of the Constitution provides that one of the roles of the National Assembly is to deliberate on and resolve issues of concern to the people. Whereas the Kenya Airports Authority is a state corporation fully owned by the government of Kenya, the Kenya Airways is a company in which the government of Kenya has a 48.9% stake in terms of shareholding. Kenya Airways is therefore a corporation in which the government, or a company in which the government has substantial shareholding, both for strategic and national interest. Honourable members, you will also agree with me that Kenya Airways, being a listed company at the Nairobi Securities Exchange, cannot be devoid of public scrutiny in as far as its operations are concerned. Any major restructuring or reorganization of the Kenya Airways will therefore attract deserved attention of the people of Kenya, and more particularly through their representatives. On the other hand, honourable members, should the Kenya Airways proposal fall under the purview of the Privatization Act number 2 of 2005, whose section 23, subsection 3, provides as follows, and I quote, "The Cabinet Secretary shall submit a report in form of a sessional paper on a privatization proposal approved by the Cabinet to the National Assembly for consideration. 4. Upon laying before the National Assembly, a report under subsection 3 shall stand referred to the relevant committee of the National Assembly." Honourable members, it is clear from the foregoing that Parliament's involvement in the conclusion of the Kenya Airways proposal cannot be overlooked, irrespective of the nature of the commercial arrangement. It is therefore not a matter of if Parliament will be involved. Rather, it is when is the right stage for Parliament to be involved. It is inconceivable in parliamentary parlance that the House or its committees would become part of policy execution, as that may prejudice the oversight function of the House as enshrined in Article 95, Clause 5, Paragraph B of the Constitution. It is for this reason that I found it inappropriate for the Departmental Committee on Transport, Housing and Public Works to attempt to undertake what it termed as public participation of the privately initiated investment proposal between KQ and KA at this infancy stage. Honourable members, let me allow these members to make their way in. I resume. At this stage, that exercise is obligation of the Kenya Airports Authority and all the relevant state departments, which are expected to thereafter apprise the House on the progress of the initiative through the same departmental committee. Honourable members, let me now turn to my focus. Let me turn my focus to the second issue requiring my determination, namely whether or not the proposed PIIP between the Kenya Airports Authority and the Kenya Airways is a matter under the purview of the Public Investments Committee or the departmental committees. In doing so, permit me to refer the House to the ruling made by the Speaker on the 5th of December 2013. Then, as now, the question arose in similar framing as to the delineation of the mandates of the watchdog committees of the House, namely the Public Investments Committee and the Public Accounts Committees on the one hand, and the departmental committees on the other. In sum, the Speaker then guided that indeed the mandates of the departmental committees were clearly distinct from those of the Public Accounts Committee and the Public Investments Committee. That as a matter of fact, PAC or PIC ought not delve into such matters as a review of legislation, vetting of appointments, or matters of administration of ministries or state corporations. This finding, honorable members, was on the basis of Standing Order number 205 and 206, which preclude the Public Investments Committee from examining matters of day-to-day administration of state corporations. In the same vein, Speaker did then caution the departmental committees from veering into the province of the Public Accounts Committee and the Public Investments Committee, save for the manner contemplated under Standing Order 216. For avoidance of doubt, honorable members, the same Standing Order 216 under paragraph 5 provides that the functions of departmental committees shall be to A, investigate, inquire into, and report on all matters relating to the mandate, management, activities, administration, operations, and estimates of the assigned ministries and departments. B, study the program and policy objectives of ministries and departments and the effectiveness of their implementation. C, to investigate and inquire into all matters relating to the assigned ministries and departments as they may deem necessary and as may be referred to them by the House. Close quotes. On the other hand, Standing Order 206, subsection 2, provides that, and I quote, the Public Investments Committee shall be responsible for the examination of the working of the public investments on the basis of their audited reports and accounts. Honourable members, additional functions of the PIC under subsection 6 include A, to examine the reports and accounts of the public investments, B, to examine the reports, if any, of the Auditor General on the public investments, and C, to examine in the context of the autonomy and efficiency of the public investments, whether the affairs of the public investments are being managed in accordance with sound financial or business principles and prudent commercial practices. Under Standing Order number 206, subsection 7, the committee is prohibited from examining any of the following: A, matters of major government policy as distinct from business or commercial functions of the public investments; B, matters of day-to-day administration; and C, matters for the consideration of which machinery is established by any special statute under which a particular public investment is established. In this regard, honourable members, I find that when examined in totality, the matter in question at this point falls into two categories. On one hand, the Kenya Airports Authority is a state corporation 100% owned by the government of Kenya. The Public Investments Committee is therefore at liberty to procedurally invoke the provisions of Standing Order number 206, subsection 6, paragraph C, and examine whether the affairs of the public investments in that corporation are being made by the KAA, are being managed in accordance with sound financial or business principles and prudent commercial practices. However, in doing so, the committee ought to follow the usual procedure, particularly as guided in my communication of 5th of December 2013. In that communication, I did guide that, and I quote, should the committee intend to examine matters of procurement, I would expect them to order a special audit by the Auditor General after being satisfied that the matter requires a special audit. This means that whenever the committee requests for a special audit, the examination of the matters before the committee is discontinued until the special audit is undertaken and tabled in the House. This is informed by the universal dictum that when a party asks another party to carry out forensic inspection or any other specialized task, then the work of the first party becomes functus officio. This means that any further examination or even debate in the committee on the same matters for which a special audit has been requested may vitiate or injure the process of the special audit. In addition, it would be important to note that the Public Investments Committee may also examine this matter if it was an audit issue or query arising from the examination of audit and reports and accounts of the Kenya Airports Authority or a special audit report. The second aspect of this matter regards the contention that the policy aspects of the inquiry fall within the mandate of the Departmental Committee of Transport, Public Works and Housing. In view of the provision standing under number 216, clause 5, as enumerated earlier, the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing is at liberty to proceed and inquire into the policy aspects of the commercial arrangement between Kenya Airports Authority and Kenya Airways. Honourable members, may I at this juncture inform the House that the Auditor General has since submitted to me a report titled Special Audit Report on the Proposed Privately Initiated Proposal between Kenya Airports Authority and Kenya Airways, close the quotes. The particular report was received in my office on 14th of March 2019, and I will be asking the leader of the majority party, or indeed, in his absence, his deputy or the majority whip, to lay that report on the table of the House later during this sitting, in keeping with the requirements of sections 39 and 49 of the Public Audit Act 2015. Having perused the report, it is clear that this matter is still at the infancy. However, the Auditor General has raised several operational and policy audit issues, as well as 2 financial audit issues. Upon tabling of the report, the Public Investments Committee will be at liberty to resume its inquiry on the matter, but the committee must confine itself to the financial and expenditure aspects of the reservations of the Auditor General, as well as omissions and/or commissions on the part of the Kenya Airports Authority. As for the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing, the committee is also at liberty to proceed with its inquiry. The Departmental Committee must confine itself to matters of policy, human resource, compliance with due process of law, and generally addressing any issues of concern to the people as contemplated under Article 95 of the Constitution. Honourable members, the third matter requiring my termination is whether the Auditor General can audit the merits of policy issues of government. Those who are in the 11th Parliament may recall that this matter was a subject of a heated debate during the consideration of the Public Audit Bill 2014, as it was then, in both Houses of Parliament, which is today the Public Audit Act number 34 of 2015. Indeed, when passing the bill, Parliament did include Section 42, which provided that, and I quote, notwithstanding the provisions of this Act, in an examination under this Act, the Auditor General shall not question the merits of a policy objective of the national government or county government or any other public entity, close the quotes. The foregoing was the prevailing position in law until the 16th of February 2018, when the High Court did make a pronouncement insofar as the application of that section was concerned. Honourable members, in petition number 388 of 2016, in brackets, Transparency International Kenya versus the Attorney General and 2 others, the learned Justice Chacha Mwita, in his judgment, held that a statute could not impose conditions on the performance of the Auditor General's functions where the Constitution did not impose them. Section 42 of the Public Audit Act 2015 was therefore declared a violation of Article 10 of the Constitution, which provides for national values and principles of governance, which include integrity, transparency, and accountability, and also Article 201 of the Constitution, which provides for financial openness. This decision has implication on the business of the House and its committees, insofar as the scope of the requests for special audit are concerned. In this regard, based on this finding by the Honourable Judge, I need not dwell on the question as to whether the Auditor General is excluded by law from examining a government policy any further. I nonetheless remind the House that in the last 2 years, the Auditor General has submitted several audit reports to this House touching on performance and policy issues. These reports include, but not limited to, the following. A, performance audit report from the Office of the Auditor General on the provision of mental health care services in Kenya for the period December 2017, up to December 2017. B, performance audit report on the implementation of the National School Upgrading Program by the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology for the period up to March 2018. C, performance audit on effectiveness of measures put in place by Kenya Wildlife Services in protecting wildlife by the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife for the period June 2018. D, performance audit report on provision of housing to prison officers in Kenya. And D, these reports having been tabled and before the respective departmental committees for examination and consideration by the House. It therefore means that the Auditor General is not precluded from dealing with matters of policy. Honourable members, I will now turn to the fourth issue of consideration, which regards the procedure for requesting for a special audit from the Auditor General. Honourable members, to address this issue, it is important that we revisit the core mandate of the Public Investments Committee as enumerated under Standing Order number 206, subsection 6, paragraph B, which is to examine the reports, if any, of the Auditor General on the public investments. Once again, honourable members, I resume my seat to allow those members to make their way in. I resume my seat to allow members to make their way in, not to allow members to. I resume my seat to allow members to come in, and then instead they are just crowding at the door. You can do those things later, honourable members. Just. I resume. As we all know, the Auditor General invariably submits audit reports on an annual basis. These reports are mostly post-mortem reports on a range of subject areas under which public funds have been spent. Nonetheless, committees are not precluded from requesting the Auditor General to undertake special audits and submit reports thereof to the committees as and when need arises. Indeed, the Public Investments committees of successful parliaments have always been alive to this reality and have carefully navigated the path of getting ceased of investigation into the allegations of misuse of public funds before the release of the reports on audited accounts. Honourable members, the established practice of the House is that a committee may resolve to request the Auditor General to carry out a special audit and furnish a report to the committee before the same committee carries out further examination. Indeed, I've had the benefit of perusing the confirmed minutes of the 6th sitting of the Public Investments Committee, which was held on the 19th of February 2019, during which the committee resolved that, and I quote, the Office of the Auditor General should conduct a special audit on the proposed concession arrangement with a view to establishing adherence to the relevant laws, the risks that KAA and the public face if the takeover is implemented, and the procurement process for the services of the transaction advisor. It is evident from the foregoing, honourable members, that the committee did fairly follow procedure in requesting for the special audit. However, whereas we applaud the Public Investments Committee for bringing this matter to the attention of the House by way of a progress report, it is important that I also address the basis of any future requests for special audits going forward. Honourable members, As you are aware, Article 2.9 of the Constitution establishes the Office of the Auditor General as an independent office, subject only to the Constitution and law, and not subject to direction or control by any person or authority. In light of this article, as read together with Article 249, Clause 2, as well as the reasoning of the court in declaring Section 42 of the Public Audit Act 2015 unconstitutional, whenever committees desire to benefit from the specialized expertise of the Auditor General by way of special audits, they must be conscious that they cannot order or compel the Auditor General to do so. What steps, therefore, should a committee follow to seek for special audit from the Auditor General? In absence of parameters in the Public Audit Act 2015 and our standing orders, as your Speaker, I will resort to invoking the provision of standing order number 1, which provides that, and I quote, in all cases where matters are not expressly provided for in these standing orders or by other orders of the House, any procedural question shall be decided by the Speaker. Close the quotes. Honourable members, I therefore give the following guidance with respect to the manner of requesting for special audits. A committee wishing to request for special audits from the Auditor General shall A, indicate how the matter came before the committee. This to be supported by, amongst others, the agenda and the minutes of the committee. B, indicate any preliminary information or evidence adduced before the committee on the matter to justify the request and outline the compelling issues that have necessitated the request for a special audit. C, indicate whether the committee has confirmed the absence of any other audit report on the same matter and absence of an ongoing one. D, state the nature of the audit requested, e.g., compliance audit, financial or value for money audit, operational audit, ordinary investigative audit. E, state the specific matters to be covered in the audit requested. The committee is to be specific and accurate where there are names of people, places, projects, or programs. And finally, state the preferred timeline within which the report is required by the committee. Honourable members, in keeping with the provision of standing order number 206, subsection 7, paragraph C, a special audit shall not be sought on any matters for which machinery is established by any special statute. Further, it is inconceivable that the attention of the Speaker on a special audit by a committee of the House would only be drawn at the point of tabling of its report. The clerk is henceforth required to satisfy himself without exception that any request for a special audit complies with these guidelines before conveying the request to the Auditor General. Thereafter, the particular committee shall not be properly seized of the matter until the special audit is tabled before the House, unless the House is in recess, in which case the Speaker may refer the report to the committee and inform the House upon resumption. Let me also hasten to add that the nature of the final report of the Auditor General shall determine the committee to which the report is to be referred, notwithstanding that a particular committee made the request. These guidelines will take effect immediately. Honourable members, the fifth matter requiring my determination is whether the committee is at fault to make a progress report to the House, and what is the House expected to do with such a report. I will address this issue together with a question requiring my attention, which is whether it would be procedurally in order for the House to be moved on a motion to debate the particular progress report of the Public Investments Committee as laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, February 27, 2019, given that the report is interim. Honourable members, the progress report of the Public Investments Committee on inquiry into the proposed takeover of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport by Kenya Airways, which was laid on the table of the House by the chairperson on Wednesday, February 27, 2019, was meant to inform the House that, amongst other issues, the committee was seized of the matter and that it had requested for a special audit. The widely held meaning of a progress report that, and I quote, an interim report on progress made to date on a job, project, etc. Indeed, a progress report is an information report, usually prepared for several purposes, amongst them being to inform the House on salient issues awaiting completion of an inquiry and to keep the public updated on what is before a committee or schedule of activities so as to avoid speculations on a matter. Can we fault the committee for informing the House at this stage? Certainly not. According to Rule 177 of the Rules of Procedure and Conduct of Business of the Legislative Assembly of the National Capital Territory of Delhi, and I quote, a committee may, if it thinks fit, make a special report to the House on any matter that arises or comes to light in the course of its working, which it may consider necessary to bring to the notice of the Speaker or the House, notwithstanding that such matter is not directly connected with or does not fall within or is not incidental to its terms of reference, close the quotes. This authority is further amplified by David McGee in the third edition of the Parliamentary Practice in New Zealand, which provides that, and I quote, a committee has used a special report to the House to announce that it had initiated a major inquiry, close the quote. What is the House then supposed to do with such a progress report? Honourable members, in discussing interim or progress reports, the 5th edition of the Australian House of Representatives practice notes the following, and I quote, this procedure of interim reports provides a cost and time-effective way of a committee's views to be placed before Parliament, but should be used with care, as a committee could leave itself open to criticism that some community, government, or interest group have been excluded from the process. In addition, the committee runs the risk that its conclusions and recommendations could be based on incomplete or incorrect information, close the quotes. Further, honourable members, Robert's Rules of Order, an authority in parliamentary procedure applied in state assemblies in the United States of America, states the following with respect to a report containing only information which is essentially a progress report. Quote, even if a report contains only an account of work done or a statement of facts or opinion for the Assembly's information, it should be in writing. Apart from filing such a report, however, no action on it is necessary, and usually none should be taken, close the quotes. In addition, honourable members, the Canadian House of Commons Procedure and Practice notes that, and I quote, since the early 1990s, a number of take-note motions have been debated in the House or in Committee of the Whole. These debates solicit the views of members on some aspect of government policy and allow members to participate in policy development, making their views known before the government makes a decision, close the quotes. In our case, take-note motions are similar to the usual motions for noting. Honourable members, you will indeed recall that last year, on 5th of July 2018, I did allow the departmental committees on trade, industry, and cooperatives, and that of agriculture, livestock, and livestock, to present a progress or interim report on their inquiry into the alleged importation of illegal and contaminated sugar in the country. However, that particular progress report was made through a statement to the House, and rightly so. The progress report was not debated by the House. Nonetheless, I did allow a few members to make comments on it, and thereafter allowing the committee to resume its work with an extended deadline. In the same vein, the Public Investments Committee will automatically be granted leave to resume its sittings and consideration of the subject matter once the special audit report of the Auditor General is tabled in the House as directed by the Majority Whip. Honourable members, aside from the three legislative authorities, a progress report is seldom discussed, and if so, it has to be debated without calling the House to make a resolution, give orders, or directions. A resolution based on an interim report may certainly prejudice the outcome of the actual inquiry. Moreover, It should not be lost to the House that a motion governed by Part 12 of our standing orders, and which seeks a resolution of the House, ultimately ends with a question being put, the result of which may be that the ayes or the nays have it. This begs the question, what would be the procedural implication of the nays if the nays had it, for instance, meaning that the progress report is rejected? Obviously, such a decision, which is probable in a parliamentary setup, would render worthless the incomplete work of the committee and any related special audit. It is for these reasons that most Commonwealth legislatures have resorted to only allowing comments on progress reports or statements instead of debate upon a motion. Allowing comments is meant to accord the committee an opportunity to inform the House on the progress of the inquiry before it, while cushioning the remaining work for possible criticism, prejudices, and binding directive that would arise if the House was to debate the report by way of an ordinary motion. In summary, honourable members, I wish to guide the House, therefore, as follows. 1. I have established that the commercial arrangement between the Kenya Airports Authority and the Kenya Airways regarding the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport is a privately initiated investment proposal under the Public-Private Partnership Act 2013, which is still at the initiation stage. This is evidence from the information provided by the chairpersons of the Public Investments Committee and the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works, and Housing, as well as the report of the Auditor General submitted to my office on 14th of March 2019. 2, that the leader of the majority party or any other member designated by the House Business Committee may hereupon proceed to lay the report of the Auditor General titled Special Audit Report on the Proposed Privately Initiated Proposal, PIIP, between Kenya Airports Authority and Kenya Airways, which was submitted to my office on 14th of March 2019. Upon tabling the report will stand referred to the Public Investments Committee, which shall, in its examination of the matters contained therein, confine itself to the financial and expenditure aspects of the reservations by the Auditor General, as well as omissions and commissions on the part of the Kenya Airports Authority. 3, that as for the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing, it is also at liberty to proceed with its inquiry. However, the committee is to confine itself to matters of policy, human resource, compliance with due process and the law, benefits to the society and the nation, and generally addressing any issues of concern to the people of Kenya as contemplated under Article 95(2) of the Constitution. The committee is expected to oversight on the stages of implementation contemplated to complete the process and be apprising the House on the progress of the matter, should it proceed as initiated. This is also in tandem with my letter of 21st of February 2019 to the chairperson of the committee. Number 4, that since the investment proposal is at its infancy, it may in due course become inevitable for Parliament to be involved, particularly if there are any legislative interventions required as part of the process. In this regard, the House ought to exercise restraint at the current initial stages so as not to become prejudiced should the legislative intervention stage become inevitable. 5, that henceforth, any committee of the House which is desirous of benefiting from the specialized expertise of the Office of the Auditor General by way of requests for special audits must comply with the parameters contained in this communication. The Auditor General, in considering the request, may accede to the request based on his reasoned judgment and inform the committee through the established channels. 6, that notwithstanding my earlier approval of the notice of motion in respect of the adoption of the progress report of the Public Investments Committee on the inquiry into the proposed takeover of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport by Kenya Airways, laid on the table of the House by the chairperson on Wednesday, February 27, 2019, I am constrained not to allow the motion to proceed. This is because by doing so, the House will be offending its own established practice, and indeed the practice in many other comparable jurisdictions regarding treatment of progress reports. I will, however, allow the chairperson of the committee to present his report to the House by way of a statement as contemplated under Standing Order number 44. In so doing, he is expected to speak to the progress of the matter before the committee, which is essentially the substance of the said report. 7, that following the statement of the chairperson of the Public Investments Committee, I will allow other members of the House to make comments on the progress report. This is in keeping with the President said by the House on Thursday, July 5th, 2018, when the chairperson of the Departmental Committee of Agriculture and Livestock and the chairperson of the Departmental Committee of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives presented a joint progress report of the inquiry into the alleged importation of illegal and contaminated sugar in the country, which was an active matter before the joint committee. This practice is, however, distinct from the procedure contemplated under Standing Order number 200, providing for the half-yearly progress reports which are to be submitted to the liaison committee and thereafter tabled in the House. And 8, since a progress report is intended for information and to elicit comments without resolution and may not be amended, the proposed amendment by the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing to the subject progress report is also inadmissible. Finally, honorable members, as I conclude, I wish to laud the Public Investments Committee for bringing this matter to the attention of the House and the country. Nevertheless, even as the two committees resume the examination of the examination and the House makes comments on the progress report, may I caution the two committees and indeed the House that in examining this investment proposal, we must be conscious that it is at its infancy. All of us must uphold high standards, be mindful of the strategic interests of the nation and the welfare of the present and future generations. This behoves all of us to exercise sobriety, patriotism, and reasonable confidentiality as servants who have been called to the performance of important trusts in this republic. The House is accordingly guided. I thank you, members. I will therefore allow the majority whip at this stage to table the...
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, allow me to thank you for this elaborate communication to the House. And as communicated, Honorable Speaker, and on behalf of the leader of Majority Party, and of course in consultation with the Deputy Leader of Majority, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Thursday, March 21st, 2019. Special Audit Report of the Auditor General on the proposed privately initiated investment proposal between Kenya Airports Authority and Kenya Airways. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honor members, proceed, next order. Honor members, there's something that very simple which requires to be done very quickly. Proceed, next order.
Order number 8, the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 11 of 2019, second reading, question to be put.
Honor members, you don't do that. You don't do that, Honorable Way. It's never done that way. You can see the member for TS is an expert. Honor members, the debate on this bill was concluded yesterday. What remained was the question to be put, and since the House has quorum, I proceed to put the question, which is that the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 11 of 2019, be now read a second time. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as the contrary opinion say no? The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of Parliament to provide for the equitable division of revenue raised nationally between the national and county governments in 2019-20 financial year and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 9, motion, inquiry into the Kenya-Somalia border securitization project, question to be put.
Honour members, again, debate on this motion was concluded, and I therefore proceed to put the question, which is that this House notes the report of the Departmental Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations on the status of the Kenya-Somalia border securitization project laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, November 20, 2018. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Aye. Those who counter opinion say no. The ayes have it. Honour members, before we move to the next order, allow me to recognize the presence in the public gallery of students from the following school: Nyakoiba Secondary School from Bomachoge Church constituency, Kisii County. They are welcome also to observe proceedings in the House. Proceed.
Order number 10, Committee of the Whole House.
Sorry, honour members, upon consultation with the chair of the committee and the leadership, the business appearing on the order paper as number 12 is dropped from the order paper until further notice. So, until further notice, consult the chair of the committee and the leadership. But yes, but the business is taken out of the order paper. It's in the interest of the House. Yes. Therefore, we proceed on our members.
You will need to be around because we need the quorum. So kindly members, it will take very few minutes.
Clauses 3, 4, and 5.
I propose a question which is at clauses 3, 4, and 5 be part of the bill. And I put the question which is at clauses 3, 4, and 5 be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Many as of our contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Schedule.
Propose the question with the schedule be the schedule to the bill. I put the question which is at the schedule be scheduled to the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Many as of our contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clause 2.
I propose the question which is at the clause 2 be part of the bill. And I put the question which is at clause 2 be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Many as of our contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Title.
Propose the question which is at the title be the title to the bill. I put the question which is at the title be the title to the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Many as of our contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clause 1.
I propose the question which is at clause 1 be part of the bill. And I put the question which is at clause 1 be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Many as of our contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. And therefore, that marks the end of that particular bill, and therefore I call the mover to move reporting.
Honorable Chairperson, I beg to move that the committee do report to the House its consideration of the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 11 of 2019, and its approval thereof without amendments.
Very well. And I put the question, which is that the committee do report to the House its consideration of the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 11 of 2019, and its approval thereof without amendments. Will as many as of that opinion say aye?
Aye.
Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Stand up.
Chairperson.
I thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 11 of 2019, and approved the same without amendments.
Mover.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. I also request Honorable Lasonet to second the motion for agreement with the report of the Committee of the Whole House.
Yes, Honorable Lasonet.
Use this one.
Madam Speaker, I second, and I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Order, members. Order.
Order, Chris.
Order. Honorable Njomo. Honorable members, I propose the question, which is that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. Honorable members, I'm going to defer the putting of the question on this one until it comes back on the order paper. Next order.
Order number 9. Order number 11, motion, ratification of the revised constitution of the East African Civil Aviation Commission.
The chairperson? Is that you?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
On what grounds?
Because now I'm on record, I don't want to say the grounds because
okay,
you know.
Fine.
Now, Honorable Speaker, you know, I'm wearing a different cap now. Of course, you know, the other cap. So, Honorable Speaker, I thank you for giving me this opportunity to move, Honorable Speaker, that I beg to move that the House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing on its consideration of the revised Constitution of African Civil Aviation Commission, AFCAC, for ratification laid on the table of the House Tuesday, March 12, 2019, and pursuant to Section 8 of the Treaty Making and Ratification Act 2012 approves the ratification of the revised Constitution of the African Aviation Commission. Madam Speaker, as I move this Constitution, I would like to mention that the Constitution before us, which we are being asked to approve, Honorable Speaker, has been structured in 4 sections. Section 1, Honorable Speaker, has the following articles. Article 1 deals with definitions and what you may call prescriptions. Article 2, Honorable Speaker, deals with establishment of the AFCAC. And if you look at that, Honorable Speaker, AFCAC was established in 1969. It's relatively an old institution. Article 3, Honorable Speaker, deals with objectives, which I will go deeper into it in a short while. Article 4, Honorable Speaker, deals with functions of the AFCAC itself. But I'll delve into the details of that in a short while. Madam Speaker, as I proceed, Article 5, in that section 1, is dealing with membership. And it's very important, Honorable Speaker, to mention at this level that the AFCAC, the membership of AFCAC, is actually open to all African states. And in each member, Honorable Speaker, each member state shall enjoy equal rights. So there's no other state which is bigger than the other in terms of this aviation institution. Article 6, Honorable Speaker, deals with the legal capacity of the institution. Article 7 deals with privileges of the institution, and Article 8 tells you where, or tells us where the headquarters is. And it would be good at this stage, Honorable Speaker, for me to say that AFCAC headquarters is in Dakar, Senegal. And of course, Honorable Speaker, maybe members will be saying, why is it in Senegal? Of course, being an offshoot or a subset of AU. Of course, you know, AU is on this side of Eastern Africa, that's headquarters in Ethiopia, and therefore, I think it is good that the AFCAC one is in in Senegal, Dakar, Honorable Speaker. When you move to Section 2 of the Constitution, Honorable Speaker, it gives you a number of things. One, include the organ of AFCAC. So how is AFCAC structured to work? It works in three, I would say, sections, Honorable Speaker. One is what we call plenary. And plenary is the member state. That's like now the House itself here. So it works like that. Number two, it has a bureau. A bureau, Honorable Speaker, which I will delve detail shortly, is something like the board that will now guide the work of the institution. That is what is being created in this constitution. And then secretariat. Of course, that everybody knows. Those are the people who run day-to-day activities. That is Section 1, Honorable Speaker, of the Constitution. Section Article 10, Honorable Speaker, then gives you the details of what I've just said in terms of the plenary, bureau, and secretariat, and you proceed like that until you begin Article 12. And Article 12 will give you then the details of the bureau, and I've just summarized. Moving forward, Honorable Speaker, Article 13 will give you the functions of the bureau in details as you move forward, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, Article 14, from Article 13, then you go to Article 14 of the Constitution, Honorable Speaker, where you have the Secretariat. Article 15 deals with reports of the subcommittees of the air transport, where this AFCAC is reporting. When you go to Section 3 of the Constitution, Honorable Speaker, it deals with international relations. Meaning, Honorable Speaker, if you go through that, it means, of course, AFCAC must work with other international organizations, not only in Africa, also all over the world. And in this, Honorable Speaker, the details of that section you'll find in Article 16, which deals with cooperation with the other organizations. Section 4, Honorable Speaker, deals with financial matters. And of course, you look at it under Article 17. It gives you what we call the financial resources, where it's coming from. And this is contribution from member states to make it work. Article 18, Honorable Speaker, will give you sanctions. Then what happens if, for example, countries don't subscribe or don't pay? Of course, Honorable Speaker, you will miss, of course, the voting rights when it comes to that institution. And as you proceed, Honorable Speaker, Article 19 gives you, of course, the details on how signature of ratification association are entered into, or when it comes to force. Article 20 will deal with transition. Article 21 deals with amendments, and also Article 22, Honorable Speaker. That is what, in summary, I will say it is the constitution of AFCAC, which this Parliament, Honorable Speaker, is then asked to approve. So in detail, Honorable Speaker, what am I saying? I'm saying the following, Honorable Speaker, that the African Civil Aviation Commission, AFCAC, is the African Union specialized agency mandated with coordinating civil aviation matters in Africa and cooperating with international civil aviation organizations, Honorable Speaker, and in other relevant organizations and bodies involved in the promotion and development of aviation. Of course, Honorable Speaker, this is a very regulated industry. This is a security industry, if you like to say, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, in that regulation, then you require an institution like AFCAC to be able to deal with this industry very carefully and specifically. And that is why it's being established. It was established in 1969, Honorable Speaker. But of course, the process in terms of developing the Constitution, looking at amendment of the Constitution, lobbying other countries to be able to adopt, and the procedure is so lengthy, as I will say maybe in the final part of my presentation. Honorable Speaker, the Commission is at present governed by 1969, when it was established Constitution, which does not, Honorable Speaker, satisfy continental realities of today. Of course, you know what happened in 1969, what we had in 1969. Now there are more planes at the moment in Africa, and particularly in our own country as Kenya. We have more airports than before. Technology has changed, Honorable Speaker, and corporations. We have ICAO, which is more stronger now, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, a number of things have changed. And therefore, making that Constitution of 1969 a little bit obsolete. And that is why it is being recommended that we amend that Constitution and come to this. Honorable Speaker, as I proceed in details, the main objectives, what are the main objectives of this institution, which is AFCAC? Number one, Honorable Speaker, it's good to note that number one objective is to foster compliance with international civil aviation organization standards and recommendation and recommended practices of the safety, security, environmental protection in civil aviation in Africa. Very fundamental, Honorable Speaker. Because when you look at aviation and flying, there are no such borders. There are no such borders, Honorable Speaker, on air. And that is why you require one institution that looks like Africa as if it is only one airspace. And that is why this AFCAC is really fundamental, really important for Africa and our country. Number two, Honorable Speaker, in terms of objectives, is to promote understanding on policy matters between the African Union member states and states in other parts of the world. And of course, you know, other countries have their own equivalent of AFCAC. And therefore, in terms of traveling in air or on air, then it will be very important that we have our own institution as Africa that will also be able to deal with other institutions or organizations all over the world. And of course, the world is becoming almost one. And therefore, you require this specialized institution to be able to take care of Africa in terms of airspace. Number three, Honorable Speaker, in terms of objective, is to promote understanding on policy matters between the African Union member states and the states of other parts of the world. Three, enhance efficiency and regulatory and regularize of the transport industry among African states. Four, Honorable Speaker, formulate and enforce appropriate rules and regulations that give fair and equal opportunities to all stakeholders and promote fair competition, Honorable Speaker. Of course, as I said earlier, this is a very regulated industry. And therefore, for our country, like for example, Kenya, to have equal rights, then you need an institution like AFCAC, which is a one unified African institution, to say the rights that are being given to any other country in Africa are equal as our own rights being given to maybe even our own airlines in this country. Honorable Speaker, as I proceed, the revised Constitution provides for the establishment of African Civil Aviation Commission, whose functions include undertaking studies. I've said objective earlier, now these are functions. What are the functions? Undertaking studies on air transport, ensuring compliance with international civil aviation standards and advise member states on civil aviation matters and coordinate the development of plans in the field of aviation infrastructure and encourage and support the creation of autonomous civil aviation entities. And then why do you need autonomous civil aviation entities, Honorable Speaker? It's because of the air safety. You know, of course, you know what happened, that safety on air is number one. When it comes to air transport, is number one. And therefore, this institution, therefore, which is mandated to study, they come up with new technologies, come up with new measures in terms of safety when our people are traveling all over the world. And that is why it is so critical, Honorable Speaker, that at this stage in life and time, to reform the requirements of 1969 to the current requirements. Honorable Speaker, as I proceed, the revised constitution further provides for the creation of the organs of the commission, which I mentioned earlier in passing, which include, Honorable Speaker, the plenary, the bureau, and the secretariat. In terms of the constitution, the plenary shall be composed of duly accredited representatives of the member states responsible for aviation. The bureau, which shall be responsible for convening the plenary, and as I said earlier, Honorable Speaker, that the plenary is like parliament. That brings one person from every country that is accredited, and of course you would like to say all over Africa. So when they meet, then they come to create the bureau. And what this is I'm saying, Honorable Speaker, I'm saying that member states responsible for civil aviation, the bureau, which shall be responsible for convening the plenary, shall be composed of president of the commission and 5 vice presidents elected by plenary in accordance with the African Union geographical representation formula. What do I mean, yes, Honorable Speaker? If you look at the geography of Africa, it means that every corner, you must have somebody from Western Africa, you must have somebody from Northern Africa, you must have one person from East Africa, Central Africa, and maybe South Africa. That is 5. That is now the composition of the people we call bureau. Bureau is what I said earlier. For simple understanding, it's like the board running the day-to-day activities in terms of how this AFCAC is supposed to move. And they will sit in, as I said earlier, in Senegal. And of course, they will be held, and this is done by the parliament, which is the plenary, the whole countries that come together. And then, Honorable Speaker, then the bureau will be assisted by the secretariat, which is administrative arm of the commission, and shall be headed by Secretary General, assisted by necessary and competent staff for the smooth functioning of the commission. That is the work of the bureau. Then the bureau will come with staff. But this staff are being headed by Secretary General. So that is now the people, the technical staff. And I'm presuming, Honorable Speaker, of course, after when we ratify as a country, we'll also have our own person. And we can also start campaigning, you know, to have also somebody from this country leading the AFCAC. Honorable Speaker, allow me then also to touch on a few issues, which, Honorable Speaker, I'm saying that the Constitution, which I presented to you, provides for the need for cooperation and collaboration with other international organizations on matters of mutual interest. Honorable Speaker, the Constitution also provides that the Commission shall be funded by contribution made by member states in accordance with the scale assessment determined by the plenary. It is the parliament, it is the countries that will come together and agree, how do we run this AFCAC? Then we run by subscription. Of course, then every country will have to agree as ourselves, as Africans, say how much will each country pay in terms of running this institution. So that is the source of income, and of course the day-to-day running resources for running institution. The Constitution further, Honorable Speaker, states that any member state which fails to honor its financial obligation to the Commission for 2 years shall forfeit its right to vote in the plenary or to present any candidate to any elective position. And of course, now here there are 6 elective positions. So there's a president, 5 deputy presidents or vice presidents. It means, Honorable Speaker, that then if you are not a well or up-to-date paid member, then you have no reason to run the institution, because then you have not paid. And of course, that is then maybe perhaps you want to say, Honorable Speaker, that is also a sanction. But that's also one way of motivating people then to come. I am presuming, Honorable Speaker, that it will be a responsibility of all countries that are member states of AFCAC to have their responsibilities to be able to pay to run this institution, because air transport, Honorable Speaker, is one very important subject that needs to be considered. Reason being, it is the one that is moving people all over the world very quickly and in short terms. And that, therefore, in my view, will be the motivation of members making their contributions to this commission. Honorable Speaker, the Constitution further, finally, Honorable Speaker, makes allowance for amendments to the Constitution and encourages negotiations as means of dispute resolution. Honorable Speaker, like any other law, even our own Constitution, the 2010 Constitution, it must end by giving opportunities and ways of amending it. And even though this one, Honorable Speaker, there is also a procedure for amending it, and it is provided for in the Constitution. So, Honorable Speaker, then a very important question then comes to us as I move for adoption of this report. Did this report then, or this Constitution, follow the right procedures in terms of, or in accordance with Treaty Making and Ratification Act 2012? Honorable Speaker, the Ministry, in its explanatory memorandum of the submission of the revised Constitution to Parliament, noted that Kenya was already a party to the 1969 Constitution. Therefore, the ratification of the revised Constitution was a logical sequence for continuity. The Ministry noted to us as a committee, Honorable Speaker, that the revised Constitution did not propose any amendment to our own Constitution as a country, and its objective promote constitutional values that are provided for in the Constitution. Of course, you know, Honorable Speaker, that is a requirement under Treaties Making and Ratification Act, that whether this treaty offends any part of our law, and particularly, or to begin with, our Constitution. And this committee, Honorable Speaker, before you, would like to confirm to the House and to the people of Kenya that the proposed changes in this Constitution does not offend or is not in contradiction with our own Constitution and our own laws. That has also been confirmed, Honorable Speaker, by the memorandum submitted to Parliament by the Ministry. Honorable Speaker, the Ministry further noted that the public funds to be incurred in implementation of this revised Constitution would be created for the, so Honorable Speaker, the Ministry further noted to my committee that the public funds to be incurred in the implementation of this revised Constitution would be catered for by the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, which had already budgeted for this contribution. So because that's a very important question, Honorable Speaker, that the people of Kenya and the House would like to know. So if it is, it requires funding, so where is the funding coming from? We would like to assure the House through this committee that the Ministry has assured us, and therefore to the House, that the budgetary consideration is already under Kenya Civil Aviation Authority. So we have no problem, and that is already within the provisions in following the Treaty Making and Ratification Act 2012. Honorable Speaker, the committee, in a newspaper advertisement dated 4th December 2018, we made an advertisement, Honorable Speaker, in those dates, 4th December 2018, to facilitate public participation as it is required in the Constitution for this revised Constitution, by inviting the public to make written submissions on the proposed ratification of the revised Constitution. The committee, Honorable Speaker, it's good to note for record that the committee, however, did not receive any submission. Honorable Speaker, our understanding, therefore, that if we didn't receive any adverse memorandum on this Constitution or any other that we put outside there, then it means that, Honorable Speaker, then the people of Kenya agree with it. And that is why, Honorable Speaker, then that informed our decision. We also had the Ministry we had the Ministry coming, we interacted with them, and we listened to them. Of course, they really want this treaty, and particularly the Constitution, Honorable Speaker, approved by the House as quick as possible. And of course, you know why, Honorable Speaker, is that Kenya is a serious player in terms of aviation. You know that, Honorable Speaker, a serious player. And that is why, as a committee, we are in agreement 100% to the review and the structuring, the proposed review and the structuring by executive of aviation sector. Reason being, Honorable Speaker, what we have realized going forward is that Kenya is losing competitiveness. When we are discussing these aviation issues, Honorable Speaker, which you ruled earlier, many people came to us, and you know, Honorable Speaker, what they were telling us is, let's go from benchmarking to Rwanda. And I was very shocked myself, Honorable Speaker, as a Kenyan, that how can we compare ourselves and going to benchmark on aviation issues to Rwanda? Where did we start? You know, the way we believe ourselves and where we are in terms of economy, why are we looking back to go to small countries like Rwanda to do benchmarking? How? They should be coming to Nairobi and Jomo Kenyatta to do benchmarking. Meaning, Honorable Speaker, there is somewhere in aviation that we have gone wrong as a country. And that is why reviewing aviation sector in either way, Honorable Speaker, is almost compulsory in this country. Because we're losing competitiveness, even to our own brothers, Ethiopians, Emirates, and so on. We're losing competitiveness. Until when people are admiring to go for benchmarking in small countries than ourselves. I think that is not very good for us. But it's saying one thing, Honorable Speaker. It is saying review of aviation sector this is the right time to review our aviation sector. And I will assure the House, Honorable Speaker, and assure you that my committee is up to date in terms of these issues. And of course, we are very happy about the ruling of the Speaker that is giving now, gave us a clear way, including also this constitution, the African constitution which I'm presenting before you. It's now giving us a clear mandate in terms of how do we move. Because there was a bit of some problem earlier between ourselves and PIC. But your ruling, Honorable Speaker, is really Solomonic and putting aviation and policy matters, day-to-day running issues, like now the proposed PIP, which was said, is now, we will do it, and we will do it to the best of our ability in terms of helping our country. But, Honorable Speaker, part of that review of aviation sector is this constitution which I'm presenting before you and the House. But, Honorable Speaker, as we move forward, when this constitution will be in place, and then it's going to update the systems. You know, Honorable Speaker, we are running aviation using technology. The technology of 1969, when this constitution was coming into effect, and today, 2019, is obsolete. And of course, you know, even this House, we are told that you are reviewing even our own technology, meaning, Honorable Speaker, that it is part of what we are trying to talk about it today, Honorable Speaker. And as a country ourselves, it is good for us to lead from front in terms of Africa. And we need to position ourselves. If we don't position ourselves in Africa or playing our level in Africa properly in any other sector, we better do it in aviation, Honorable Speaker. And that's why I'm pleading with the House that we move to approve this constitution. As I conclude, Honorable Speaker, I wish to state that the committee, in its consideration of the revised constitution of the African Civil Aviation Commission, relied on procedure set out as Section 8 of the Treaty Making and Ratification Act number 45 of 2012, which provides for the consideration of the treaties by the National Assembly. Honorable Speaker, the committee therefore recommends that the House adopts the report and subsequently approves the ratification of the revised constitution of the African Aviation. Honorable Speaker, give me this opportunity then also to thank my members. I have very able members. We really, of course, we were given this the other day, Honorable Speaker, in Leadership Committee of the House, and we have done our best in terms of moving it very fast, and I thank my committee members for giving me this opportunity to make a presentation on their behalf, and therefore, Honorable Speaker, I beg to move and ask Honorable Rindikiri Mugambi to second.
Honorable Mugambi.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Indeed, my chairman has alluded to the deliberations of the committee and specifically the benefit that Kenya is going to gain from being part of the African Civil Aviation Commission and be part as a result of the International Civil Aviation Organization. Madam Speaker, Kenya cannot learn alone. We have to be part of the world decision-making in as far as air transport matters are concerned. Madam Speaker, we have to gain from the benefits of the capacity that the International Civil Aviation Organization us in terms of safety, security, and the economics that surround the air transport. Madam Speaker, if we go it alone, if we don't sign or rectify this treaty, Madam Speaker, it is going to be very expensive on our part. Similarly, handling some of these matters, Madam Speaker, it's very expensive in terms of time, in terms of expenses, and Kenya and Africa at large does not have the majority, or what I can call IHR capacity, to conduct research, to conduct studies in as far as air transport is concerned. So, Madam Speaker, based on this and what our chairman has stated, we stand to gain more by rectifying this constitution. So, Madam Speaker, I beg to second the ratification of the constitution.
Order. Honorable members, I go on to propose a question, which is that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing on its consideration of the revised constitution of the African Civil Aviation Commission, AFCAC, for ratification, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, March 12, 2019, and pursuant to Section 8 of the Treaty Making and Ratification Act 2012, approves the ratification of the revised constitution of the African Civil Aviation Commission. Let's start with the Honorable Majority Whip, Honorable Washiali.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to support and congratulate the Chair of the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing in moving the report on the ratification of the revised constitution of the African Civil Aviation Commission, which was tabled in this House on 12th March 2019 by the chairperson of the committee, Honorable David Kosing. Honorable Madam Speaker, as the chair stated, the revised constitution of the African Civil Aviation Commission was developed pursuant to the operational challenges encountered with the application of the Commission's 1969 Constitution. And that is the Constitution that we are revising, 1969. 1969, Madam Chair, is 50 years ago. And while I was looking at this report, Madam Speaker, I think 50 years is just a very, very long period. And even those who formulated this constitution that we are currently revising, maybe some of them may not be existing out of old age. Therefore, Madam Speaker, a lot of time has elapsed since the 1969 Constitution was ratified. And as we all know, advancement in years brings about advancement in technology and infrastructure. It is therefore necessary that the Constitution of the African Civil Aviation Commission be updated so as to achieve its realistic implementation. Madam Speaker, the revised constitution establishes the African Civil Aviation Commission as an organ of the African Union. The functions of the commission include the development of collective arrangements to secure the necessary resources for the promotion of international civil aviation, to examine specific problems which may hinder the development and operation of the African civil aviation industry, and take corrective measures to coordinate the election of African states into the International Civil Aviation Organization, as well as African experts into the Air Navigation Commission, and to ensure advocacy and defense of common positions of member states at international forums relating to civil aviation. Madam Speaker, the revised constitution also establishes the structures for the operations of the Commission. Unlike the previous constitution, this revised constitution has now a plenary, it has a separate bureau, and it has a secretariat, which shall harmonize all functions within the Commission. The Constitution further provides that the headquarters of the Commission is currently in Dhaka. The previous Constitution that we are revising, and this was elaborately alluded to by the chair, that the Commission should be permanently in Senegal, Dhaka. And I think that was very unfair for other member states. And that's why, with the revised constitution, it gives now even Kenya and other East African countries an opportunity to host this secretariat. I don't want to speak much, Madam Speaker, but just permit me to conclude by saying that the ratification of the protocol and its subsequent implementation will ensure that Kenya is at par with the rest of the world in as far as the civil aviation sector is concerned. This is crucial towards the development of infrastructure in the country, since air transport is an enabler to achieving economic growth and development. It will also facilitate integration into the global economy and provide vital connectivity on the national, regional, and international scale. Honorable Speaker, I want to just end there and urge members who have had an opportunity to look at this report to support this motion by the Chair of Transport. I therefore, Madam, beg to support. Thank you.
The Honorable Member for Suba North, Odhiambo Akoth.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me this opportunity. Chair, I wish to thank the committee for this report and also take this opportunity to support. In supporting, Chair, I want to say that I'm very happy I sponsored the Treaty Making and Ratification Act, which has enabled members of parliament to actually know what treaties the country is getting involved in. And through parliament, we are then able to know whether the treaties that the country is getting in furthers our interests as a country. Madam Speaker, I wish to indicate that our role as members of parliament under the Treaty Making and Ratification Act is to make sure that we are not just conduits for treaties. And sometimes I get very perturbed when I see whenever we are dealing with international treaties that members don't have a lot of interest. Yet, we need to interrogate treaties in the same manner that we interrogate other pieces of legislation, because under Article 2 of the 2.7 of the Constitution, now I can't remember whether it's 2.6 or 2.7 of the Constitution, every treaty that has been ratified by Kenya becomes a part of the laws of Kenya. So if we let treaties pass without interrogating, then it means we are actually passing laws without interrogating their content. So sometimes it's a bit disheartening when you see that members don't really take a lot of interest when they're dealing with treaties, but we take a lot of interest in other pieces of legislation. When actually once they pass here and then they get ratified, they gain the status of law in the country. Having said that, Madam Speaker, I would want to say that one of the things I would have hoped to hear from the chairman of the committee, because we are actually benchmarking these treaties against our own constitution, I would have loved to hear, especially in the structure, like the Bureau, what is the composition by gender, what is the composition on issue of youth inclusion, and the inclusion of persons with disabilities, because that is a standard that we have placed in our constitution, so that if you find a treaty that does not conform to that, then we should be advising Kenya that we actually ratify, but with the reservations. So my challenge is that a lot of times the treaties pass, and we use this as a conveyor belt. I've never seen a situation where we actually advise the relevant ministries that some of these treaties are not conforming, because they can't all, we really can't say that all of them are really conforming. But the chair didn't speak to that, and I would want the chair to really look at it so that if it doesn't conform in that sense, then we can advise the country to ratify, but with the reservations on that specific article. Chair, I'd want to say that I'm glad that even this constitution of AFCAP that has been brought is seeking to harmonize civil aviation in Africa. My challenge, and I've traveled in Africa a lot, and my challenge is usually when you see the travel within Africa has always been a real big problem. There are a lot of times I want to go, especially between the East and the West. If I want to travel to the West, sometimes I have to go to Europe in order to go to the West. Not sometimes, a lot of times. Why? Because even though we are one continent, we have not yet embraced each other and liberalized such that we are able to make travel easier. We have not embraced the culture of Pan-Africanism, and it is very interesting because it's the concept of language still divides us, and we are still separated with the concept of colonialism. You see the people that were French tend to relate more with the French. The ones that were colonized by the English tend to relate more, and it actually replicates itself in everything. Whenever we attend like the International Women's Conferences, sometimes it gets amazing that you stop for almost 1 hour. The meeting will not start because we are still debating whether people should speak in French or English or Arabic. And sometimes I really find the president of Rwanda very progressive in that sense. Because in Rwanda now they are getting people to learn French, Kiswahili, and English. Why? Because then we can embrace our Pan-Africanism. And I would wish that one of the things that I would see change in our country is that we can all speak, we can compel every school to teach French and English. Instead, in Kenya, we are making the medium of instructions in our schools mother tongue. I don't know who I will be communicating with in Zimbabwe, where I'm married in Luo or in Kisuba. So I think we need to start having progressive minds, because these are artificial barriers that even affect the way we communicate and engage intra-country. Madam Speaker, I was in the Pan-African Parliament. If I can just say sometimes how I get disappointed with our African ways of doing things. And for the 5 years I was in the Pan-African Parliament, we debated about making that parliament or giving it legislative power, because otherwise now it's basically a talk shop. This kind of constitution would then find its way to the Pan-African Parliament, where would be setting standards and harmonizing laws from an African perspective. But unfortunately, I don't know who bewitched us in Africa, that everything we must take time. Work that can be done in 1 minute, we want to do it in 4 hours. Before I came to Parliament, I remember I used to have, my deputy director was a lady from Ireland, and she used to get so discouraged because whenever we call for a meeting that begins at 8, most people would come at 12, and there is no apology. They just say, hi, Sasa, how are you? like it's normal to come 6 hours late. Unfortunately, I've been forced to adapt that culture because I hate waiting. And the chair, what then happens is at one point, to make her life easier, because she used to get so depressed, is to tell her that in your country, the train leaves at 8:21. But in Kenya, the train leaves between 8 and 12. So if you are told the train is, what time do I get the train? Between 8 and 12. And I think we need to start rethinking, and we need to have a paradigm shift in Africa if we want to make a change, so that we start thinking of the train leaving at 8:21. That is if we really want to be serious about change in Africa. I know the chairman made a mention about why Senegal is the capital. And I've been lucky to travel to Senegal. And I'm glad that in my many travels in Africa, somehow, especially because of the language barrier, unfortunately, again, Senegal is one of the countries that I've traveled to very recently. And my perception about some of those countries, from a few of the ones that I've traveled in West Africa, was that I was expecting really some dingy place. And I think Senegal is one of Africa's best kept secrets, so I'm not shocked why it is headquarters. And I think it is a challenge for us as Kenya. And I'm glad the chairman has said that I get embarrassed when I hear people saying that we are going to benchmark in Rwanda. Before I joined Parliament chair, I used to do a consultancy in Rwanda just the year before I joined Parliament, I think 2006. And I used to travel to Rwanda very, very frequently. And Rwanda was benchmarking us in virtually everything. And I remember that Rwanda, one of the things that they used to do, if I went to Kigali, you'd find that they have Kigali Institute of whatever. And it really mirrored Kenya, because the Kigali would be K and Kenya is K. So they looked upon us, up to us rather. When did the story change that we start looking up to Rwanda? Kenya needs to find a path and retrace our path. And one of the things that is making us lose our path is corruption. And unless we deal with the corruption in this country, we are headed in the wrong path. Yesterday, I was joking when I was doing a pre-recorded program on NTV chair. And I told them that people are talking about some money that was found in a safe. And I said, we always joke in Parliament about gold being in those safes. When I went back in my house, I was shocked that actually the gold is real. I thought it was propaganda in Parliament. Chair, the DCI has a lot of work to do. And
Honorable Millie, I'll give you a minute to conclude.
Thank you, Chair. I'm saying that DCI has a lot of work to do. And I would want to urge that we depoliticize the issue of corruption. And for those who indeed are found to be corrupt, let us not jump to our tribes. I've seen somebody writing online that one of the guys that was found there comes from where my mother comes from. They went to the same school that my mother went to. And somebody speaking online is telling me that this one is being targeted because he's a Luo who has now found money. He is not my tribe. My tribe is not corruption. If you are corrupt, carry your own cross. There is no tribe called corruption, Chair. And if the country Kenya does not retrace its path and go back on the correct path, Chair, we will find ourselves looking for small countries to emulate. With those few remarks, I support.
Let's have Honorable Kevin Wanyonyi, member for Kwanza.
Madam Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. I think I want to take this opportunity to thank the committee for having highlighted this ratification. And Madam Speaker, 1963, most people here were not born. And 69, I'm sorry. I think the majority may not have seen this world. And therefore, I think it's better for us to look at this constitution. And I think the structure, as mentioned by the chair, I think is very clear. You clarified. I'm therefore convinced that I should actually support the ratification of this because I think 1963-69 is a bit too far. I mean, many things have changed. Secondly, while sitting here, Madam Speaker, I was waiting to hear the chairman talk about the safety of our airspace here. We know what happened in our neighboring state, and we lost so many people. I would have expected that this rectification of this would also go with the Kenyan states or Pan-African states coming together to be able to look at the safety of their airspace. The other thing I want to, and I think the Honorable Millie has just mentioned, the Pan-Africanism. I think it is an opportunity for us as Africans to be able to have other airlines coming together to be able to work together. Yeah? Today you go to Jomo Kenyatta International Airport and see so many airlines from other countries, not Africans in fact, most of them from Europe, Far East and Asia and whatever. And we do not have African airlines actually doing the business here. And Nairobi was a business hub, and I've expected to see many of the African airlines, save of course Kenya Airways itself and the Ethiopian airline. And of course I'm seeing Rwanda coming up very well, but even airlines like South Africa are not being seen around. So what is happening is that I think with the ratification of this association is quite timely, and therefore, as Kenyans will be able to rectify this without any problem, so that can be able to encourage Pan-Africanism, as my sister just mentioned. And the other thing is that I am a very scared person, Madam Speaker, having witnessed what happened to our state, our nearest state, Ethiopia. I want to be assured that this ratification of this will also go a long way to be able to tell us and be assured that the airspace in this country is safe, so that we do not have this kind of thing again, because it's so painful. It's so painful. We have cases where the other, I think a month or so, we saw the helicopter flying at night. And what happened? It perished. And as we're talking now, we don't know where the fate of the pilot. The body has not been recovered. So there's something wrong with the airspace in this country. And therefore, as we rectify this, let's look at some of the things that can help our airspace to be able to be safe for us to be able to. Because the easiest, so they say, the safest way is to fly. And the fastest way is to fly. But I think most people are now scared to fly because we are not even sure of the airspace. So this organization, which I think has got very good structure, and the Constitution, I think, is also come out very clear, as stated by the chairman. Please, let's look critically at airspace and see that it's safe. Otherwise, if nothing, I think we should be able to pass this ratification, and we hope we'll be able to highlight exactly what is happening to airspace. Because the other time, I'm sorry, I was flying and I missed my flight. That flight I missed, you know what happened? It ended up Abadeas. Because the aircrafts that we have, some of them are not even safe to fly in bad weathers. So I think let's rectify this and be able to see what the way forward. But we should encourage other African states to come together and be workers. We have been working as a team to be able to have stronger and better aircrafts, and so they can be able to do business around. Otherwise, I support the ratification.
Let's have the member for Masinga, Honorable Mwali Ombithi.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to air my views on this ratification on the African Civil Aviation Commission. First, I want to thank the Departmental Committee on Transport and Public Works and Housing for working to be able to come up with this report so that we can be able to debate upon it. It is very, very important to have a safe airspace. One of my hobbies in this world is to fly. And I've flown to many, many countries in the world, even before I joined the parliament. And it is the safest mode of transport and the quickest of all. And if it is rectified and be able to be harmonized so that the countries of Africa can be able to have a treaty whereby they set the laws and the special of safety so that they can be able to speak as one voice. Because our air transport carries many, many, many people at once. It's not like a car that carries 5 people. So that if it is more safe, according to the rules that are going to be set by the treaty, and also the way the organization is done, so that they can be able even to remove the old aircrafts in the field so that we have better ones, better engines, better service that can be able to move easily, and also to have aircrafts that are not moved by the wind all the time. I think that will be more safe for them that fly all the time. And therefore, I want to support this ratification, and would like to just stop there, because I feel that we need it like yesterday so that we can be able to speak in one voice. In Kenya, I have watched that Kenya is ahead as far as aviation is concerned. If you go to other countries of Africa, you find just one aircraft at the airport, or 2. But if you go to the airport in JKA here, especially from 3 o'clock, every 5 minutes one lands. And therefore, it is very important for Kenya to be part of that treaty, because we have a lot of traffic in our airport, and therefore many of the countries of Africa would like to do business with Kenya, even the world, especially when our airspace is safe. And therefore, I want to say I support this ratification. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Chief Whip, Majority Chief Whip.
Honorable Speaker, I rise on standing order number 53.3. Honorable Speaker, like I've said before, the business of members of parliament is not only limited to the debate in the chambers. Many members are involved in other business of this house, including the writing of reports of various committees, the reports that eventually end up here. And that's why we may not see as many members in the chambers as it's supposed to be. Therefore, Madam Speaker, I rise under standing order number 53.3 that you defer putting the question on this motion until another day, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Honorable members, I think the request by the Honorable Washeli is quite in order. But before we get to that, we will call on the mover to reply. Then I'll let Honorable Washiali go ahead to prosecute the
thank you,
motion
Honorable.
again. And Honorable Chair, we are calling you to reply because I don't see any more interest of members to contribute.
I thank Honorable Speaker. That means that they agree with us 100%. That is what it means, and I thank them, Honorable Speaker, for that. Speaker, what Honorable members raised when they were contributing is very fundamental. And I want to follow what Honorable Millie, who is our senior. When I came to this house, I found Millie here. And I really admired what Millie used to do sometimes. But of course, sometimes I didn't. So I don't want to say why I didn't. But Honorable Speaker, what you said is very important. How can we go back to benchmark with Rwanda? How? What has happened? Something has gone wrong in this country. And that is why we, as a departmental committee, on behalf of the House, we are saying restructuring and reforming aviation sector is today. In fact, it's long overdue. So I think as we do that, Honorable Speaker, we'll also bring in Millie, Honorable Millie, so that we can share that very, very beautiful insights that we can help this industry. Two, it is true there's a problem in travel, particularly between ourselves and the West Africans. Maybe this will be put together in the review. Three, Honorable Speaker, to clarify, on the issue of gender, we've looked at it. Honorable Speaker, at this level, that debate cannot come. Reason being, we are only creating an institution. In the Constitution, we are only creating an institution. And the institution we are calling here is AFCAC. And we are saying there will be a bureau, there will be plenary, there will be secretariat. Once the institution is there, then if it is in this country, then whatever happens, then after that, in terms of nominating the officers or employing people, will fall right within the Constitution in terms of provision of the gender principles. It cannot work the other way. Of course, as he said, which I agree that once we adopt this one, it becomes part of our laws. But it will not be different from other requirements of the Constitution. It will be a subset of the Constitution. It will not be above the Constitution. So that I want to assure honorable members with those concerns that this is going to be really taken care of. But above all, Honorable Speaker, I thank honorable members who have made contributions. And I thank you also, Honorable Speaker, so that we can make progress. I have a number of them that are coming in the next few weeks. But this one, I thank honorable members for making contribution. I beg to reply.
Honorable Washiali.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank you again, and I beg for your intelligence. I was jumping the gun. Madam Speaker, I raise understanding order number 53.3. Very clear, Madam Speaker, and I want to give the reasons because the other day when we were debating the adjournment motion, and given that debates these days are on our national TVs, there was a point where it was captured on the social media showing a house that has very few members, Madam Speaker. And I think it's important as a leader, one of the leadership of this house, for the public to know that the business of members of parliament is not only limited in the chambers. There's a lot of parliamentary business going on in committee rooms. There is also other members who have gone to seek evidence from witnesses in other parts of the country, including, for example, if I gave an example of a committee in which I am a member, the Committee on Environment. As we speak now, they are on their way to Nakuru. They will spend in Nakuru, and then in the morning they will be visiting the two dams that have had issues, if you looked in the newspapers of last week and even the week before. Therefore, that helps us to explain that the business of members is not only limited in debating in this house. But of course, the threshold that we need to have in this house to put a question is also mandatory. And that's why I'm requesting, Madam Speaker, that you defer until the following day. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
That is well in order. The putting of the question on this motion stands deferred until such time as when the House Business Committee will bring it up again. Members, order number 12 has also been deferred in an earlier communication. So let's move on to the next one.
Order number 13, motion. Report on an inspection visit to the Namanga one-stop border post in Kajiado County.
Honorable Whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the chairperson on the Committee on Regional Integration has also not given a report in as far as the tabling of course it was tabled, but in as far as moving of this report is concerned, and I would just wish that we stepped down this motion until the following week. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The motion stands deferred. Again, on the next order, honorable members, you know that this was already dispensed with in an earlier communication by the Speaker. So we move on to the next order.
Order number 15, the County Statistics Bill, Senate Bill number 9 of 2018, second reading.
Honorable Whip.
I thank you, Madam Speaker, again. And if you allowed me, I would want to speak on the two businesses before the House on order number 15 and order number 16 so that I don't come back. Honorable Speaker, on the report that we were giving on the House business, we mentioned a lot about this. And these two reports are actually amendments brought by the Senate bills, and the House business had scheduled these reports for debate next week because there was a report from the respective committees that has not reached table room, which we feel by end of in the course of the weekend, where the committees, the relevant committees, will complete this because it's just an amendment that was brought by the Senate, and we will have to debate on the two bills on Tuesday going forward, Madam Speaker. I thank you.
Okay. Orders number 15 and 16 also stand deferred until such a time when we will have it, when we will have both back on the order paper through the House Business Committee. Order members. Honorable members, the time now being 5:36 p.m., this House stands adjourned until Tuesday, 26th March 2019 at 2:30 p.m.